Alright, y'all, here goes nothing. Either this is going to be a happy video or a sad video.
Could get the ball back.
I just wonder if they might come back to that play this time. You've got Ertz down tight. They ran the pick the last time. The little reel to the back. This time Boston Scott in there was there.
Here we go. Throw it. No!
Couldn't even get the pass away. And taken down there, Clowney and Reed combined. So 156 now. And Seattle gets the ball back.
Thanks to Janavian Cloudy for entering my quarterback. And the same score we had when we lost to him the first time. Well, yeah. Yeah. All that. Defense can't stop plays. Carson Wentz got hurt. Thanks to Janavion Cloudy. The refs didn't even, too many penalties. Too many anything. And now we're going home. Yeah. What a season, y'all. Had Russell Wilson all day. And yeah.
There's Marcus Epps, I believe.
Beat on the last play, yeah.
Yep. Nigel Bradham and the rest of the guys. Here's Tim Jernigan. You know the fairy tale, Cinderella. Cinderella gets the dress on, everything's looking great, and then eventually midnight strikes. Of course, midnight for Cinderella did not include having Carson Wentz taken away from her. No, it did not, as happened to the Philadelphia Eagles today. And we'll be left thinking about this game for quite some time. No, it was not a close game. Yes, we probably knew which way it was going way before halftime. Once you lose your starting quarterback, you pretty much lose everything. A guy who had not been healthy for the previous 2 seasons. We know all that. Finally, healthy all of the season. And their main weapon on this ball club was Carson Wentz. And he takes a cheap shot from Jadeveon Clowney. And you would think a suspension, if not a hefty fine, would be coming. You don't just hit. There's Doug Peterson. Try to come up with the right combinations. Try to dial it up. But it's difficult. The air goes out of the balloon significantly. The defense still played well. We talked pregame about how Seattle scores 25 points plus per game. The Eagles, on the average. And the Eagles held them to 17. Malcolm Jenkins and Rasul Douglas pondering. Perhaps. Looks like Malcolm getting a little, here's how it should have gone, my friend. As the Eagles lose 17-9, the season is over, unfortunately. And we really thought at the start of this day with Minnesota winning at New Orleans, it set everything up nicely for even the Eagles. Seth and I had joked about, could the Eagles host the NFC Championship game? Well, the step one happened today with Minnesota beating New Orleans. And I guess the question we'll wonder is whether or not, A, they should have gone for it with 7 minutes or so left. There's Dallas Goedert. And it was Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, by the way. Right. My goodness. For a guy with a fractured ribs and a lacerated kidney, not too shabby. Miles Sanders had an ankle injury. He comes in there. Greg Ward. Everybody, they gave it their all. And the one guy you want to give applause to who was called on is number 18. We've yet to see him, and that's the quarterback, Josh McCown. But Barrett, Jason Kelsey, Barrett, Ray, Seth, there's Jason Peters.
He had a tough one today. JP had a tough one.
Well, you guys asked me in the pregame, did I think Jadeveon Clowney was overrated? And I told you, he can wreck. He can wreck your offense, But I tell you what, at the end of the day, he didn't make a whole hell of a lot of plays, but he sure caused a lot of havoc in the backfield.
Yeah.
No, he made some plays, though.
But when you watch these two teams, I don't know as much before Wentz went out, but certainly if you just took a quick eye blink and said, which team's better, you would have said the Seattle Seahawks are the better team.
Record depleted that.
Yeah. Here's Zach Ertz, doubled over with something, we don't know if it's emotion or pain.
Oh, it's got to be emotion. When you pour as much into the
Josh
game
McCown.
and risk what he risked today to get out there, listen, I've been there before. I know what that feels like right there. And those guys are hurting because they understand and know that it's all over. They'll hang that uniform up. A lot of those guys won't be on this roster next year.
Cal might play his last snap.
A lot of those guys, they've got a long time to ponder what next year is going to look like.
Yeah, they sure will. And that's why it's sad to think about. When you think about what the possibilities were, it's sad to think about the alternative. And we welcome you to Eagles Postgame Live for the last time this season, presented by our friends at Cure Auto Insurance. I'm Michael Barkan with Barrett Brooks, Ray Didinger, Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn. You saw the big hug Derek Gunn and Brandon Graham exchanged, and normally they're pointing fingers at each other, busting each other's chops, and tonight it's just hey, you gave it all you had.
No, that's the beauty and the finality of the playoffs. The beauty of it is when you win, you can continue to be jovial and joke, and razz each other. But when you lose a game like this at this point in the season, you realize that it's all over, and it's not likely that you're going to have that exchange between Brandon Graham and Derek Gunn again until next September.
Yeah. And that stings when you think of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a punch to the gut. It really is, because we had so enjoyed the last 4 games of that regular season. They were 5-7, and if you had said the Eagles are going to make the playoffs starting from 5-7, you would have thought we were crazy. But the fact is, that's what they did, ripping off 4 wins. And of course, the naysayers said, well, who they beat? Well, they beat NFL teams. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. They had to go to the Meadowlands and take care of the Giants as they said goodbye to Eli Manning, and they had put up some big numbers. And really, if Carson Wentz is there, we'll be wondering about that till the start of next season.
Wow.
If Carson Wentz plays for the remainder of that game, how much different is it?
Well, I think it's a big difference. Because I think our offense runs more efficiently. Those red zone opportunities that we had, I believe, is 3 today, 4 that turned into 3 field goals. I think that we walk away with some touchdowns there. But that's not the case. And then, when I look at the overall picture, when I look at this team and, now we're in what is next year going to look like, real quick, this football team on the defensive side of the ball lacks playmakers. Fletcher Cox was a one-man wrecking crew by himself. Malcolm Jenkins played his heart out tonight. But if you go beyond those 2 names, it's hard for me to look at that game for 60 minutes and point to you another guy that made a difference tonight. And when you're playing football, you can't have 2 playmakers out of 11 players on the field.
Yeah.
They don't have enough. In the secondary, they must upgrade, because you can't cover guys that run 4-3 with guys that run 4-5. You see, we lost that battle all day long.
I'll give you guys.
And lastly, if we're going to be a pass rush front 4 group, we've got to get more out of our defensive linemen besides Fletcher Cox, because he was warring and wreaking havoc all by himself. And where was Derek Barnett tonight?
Yeah.
I know Brandon Graham was slowed by a knee injury, But where was Brandon tonight?
Yeah,
Where
I'll
was
tell you where
Journey?
Derek Barnett was. Derek Barnett was getting a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct with a hit on the quarterback. Ray, let me ask you, when you look at this one, and aside from Carson Wentz going out, was there any other way you thought the Eagles should have won this game without their quarterback?
Well, it would have been real tough, Mike. I just think that once Wentz went out, you were faced with a situation where you had to play perfect. You had to play perfect, and they didn't. And things that seem almost incidental become really big things when you're as limited as they were offensively. Just a false start that just moves you back 5 yards can be a killer in a possession. They had too many of those. They also had defensively a couple of penalties that weren't like huge, long down the field pass interference types of things, but they were defensive holding. They extended a drive. There was the silly late hit.
Delay of game on the 5-yard line. Are you kidding me?
Things like that. I mean, they aren't monumentally big plays, but in this kind of a game where your margin for error goes down to about
for life,
you just can't afford that. And that was what happened to them. And,
only saying that because I got no words.
Two of the things that really sparked this 4-game run that they had been on was offensively they were really good in the red zone and they were really good on third down. I mean, Wentz had really found his groove in those areas. He went out tonight. Look, I give McCown tremendous credit. I mean, he came in and he played his butt off. He did the best that he possibly could. But in those areas where he had been really good, and one of those things that had kind of gotten you back into the race here, tonight, you're 0 for 3 in the red zone, and you had been number 3 in the league before that. You're number 4 on third down tonight. You're 3 for 11. And by the same token, on the other side, not that Seattle was any kind of an offensive juggernaut, but they made a lot of really good third down plays. I mean, they were 8 for 13 on third down. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't amount to a whole ton of points, but they were able to kind of control the flow of the game. And, that's what it takes. The Seattle, I still come back to the fact the Seattle team isn't that good. I mean, they could get whacked at Green Bay. They really could. And they were there to be had. And this is going to sound silly because it's a hypothetical that we'll never know. But I really think if Wentz had played tonight, the Eagles would have won. And McCown came and did the best he could. But without him as the trigger man on the offense, all the plays they could have made were no longer available to them.
Yeah. Let's go across the street, check in with Derek Gunn, who has been covering this team since he came to Philadelphia way back when. Gunner, when you look at this and you look at Carson Wentz going down, first of all, do you have any kind of update? Because there were several different reports going out during the game about Wentz, whether or not he had any kind of wrist issues, whether or not he was in concussion protocol, which the team finally tweeted out he was. What's his status as you know it?
Well, about what you know right now, Michael, the only thing we've been told is that he was in concussion protocol. We all thought it was a wrist initially, the way he fell, or the way Clowney drove him into the turf. But we were told consistently that he was in concussion protocol. And obviously, when you're still in the locker room at halftime and you're in concussion protocol, you know it's not good. But my goodness, how many injuries can this young man endure? He finally gets his first shot to play in a playoff game, and he barely gets warmed up before he's knocked out. And how many more injuries could this team endure? I mean, just to get to this point, I've never seen anything like this in terms of not just players, but prominent players dropping like flies, and this team finding a way to rally just to get to this point. An emotional moment at the end of the game, you saw Zach Ertz consoling Josh McCown on the field. He was emotional, and as they were walking down the tunnel, down the far end of the tunnel here, we saw Zach Ertz bent over, and we were thinking, is it his ribs or whatever? And he was helping Josh McCown get to the locker room because he was walking with a limp. And I agree with Ray. If this team had had half the players that they were missing, even if just a quarterback, I think they would have smoked the Seattle team, because this Seattle team is not like the team we're used to seeing in years gone by. And it was a golden opportunity here at home for the Eagles, and unfortunately the catalyst who could have made this all happen fell by the wayside due to injuries. They're going to have to make some changes on this team as we start looking ahead. You need to get better in the secondary. You're going to have to get a little bit better at the wide receiver position. Their offensive line, maybe minus Jason Peters, is going to be intact for 2020. I like their young backfield. It was the direction they're going in that regard. But outside of that, you may have to look at a couple of linebackers as well.
by way of free agency or the draft as well also. But a gallant effort by this team to close out a season 9-8, not the finish they wanted. I'm sure disappointing to a lot of fans in this region, and rightfully so. But again, I go back to what I said initially. I mean, how many more frontline players can you lose before it finally catches up with you?
Well, as I said earlier, the clock struck midnight tonight, and that's it for Cinderella at this dance. And unfortunately, they go on into the off season. Derek Gunn, we thank you. We'll check back with you in the locker room with all of the interviews. We'll take a quick timeout. We will hear from Doug Peterson. It is almost a complete impossibility that we will hear from Carson Wentz. He is in concussion protocol.
So it goes like this. The season's over. Cowboy fans can run out their mouth if they want to, but y'all lost to us. So, run your mouth all you want, but y'all lost to us. Fly, Eagles, fly.